AI without responsibility. A philosophical look at ethics and safeguards. Imagine a future where artificial intelligence doesn't just assist us with everyday tasks, but becomes an integral part of making key decisions that shape our society. From complex financial transactions capable of instantly altering economic landscapes, to healthcare systems diagnosing illnesses and determining treatment strategies, from autonomous vehicles navigating our city streets, to algorithms filtering information, influencing our views and beliefs. In this new world where the power of intelligence is increasingly delegated to machines, a fundamental question arises. What happens when these machines err? When their algorithms malfunction, leading to unpredictable and possibly tragic consequences? Who then bears responsibility for these errors? The elusive code of the program? The engineers who created it? The users who rely on its decisions? Or perhaps, in an era of increasingly autonomous intelligence, responsibility will become blurred, an elusive shadow in the complex networks of artificial neurons. Consider specific scenarios that are already ceasing to be science fiction. Imagine an algorithm managing a credit system suddenly denying you a vital loan, not due to an objective assessment of your unreliability, but because of hidden biases in the data it was trained on, biases that even its creators may not have been aware of. Or picture an autonomous combat drone, which in the heat of a fleeting conflict makes a decision to attack based on complex image recognition algorithms without any human intervention. And this attack results in the deaths of civilians. Who will answer for these lost lives? The soulless algorithm itself, the developers who endowed it with lethal autonomy, the state that sanctioned its use? Or perhaps no one will be able to take on this terrible responsibility. Today, we stand at the precipice of an era of artificial intelligence that is increasingly penetrating all spheres of our existence, posing unprecedented ethical and legal challenges. What is responsibility? Philosophical foundations. Before we can answer the question of artificial intelligence responsibility, we need to turn to the fundamental concepts of responsibility in philosophy. What does it even mean to be responsible? Aristotle, in his Nicomachean Ethics, emphasized the inseparable link between responsibility and such human qualities as voluntariness of action and awareness of its consequences. He argued that virtue is the result of deliberate moral choice. Can a machine, acting on the basis of algorithms programmed into it, possess genuine free will and make a conscious moral choice? Immanuel Kant, with his categorical imperative, insisted that moral actions should be universal and based on pure reason. Can complex neural networks, which learn from vast amounts of data, be guided by abstract principles of reason in the Kantian sense? John Stuart Mill, in his philosophy of utilitarianism, placed the consequences of actions first, believing that an action is moral if it produces the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Can artificial intelligence effectively weigh all possible consequences of its decisions in an infinitely complex and dynamic world, where even human predictions often prove to be wrong? These philosophical reflections lay the groundwork for understanding how difficult it is to apply traditional notions of responsibility to the essence and actions of artificial intelligence. Can AI be responsible? Arguments for and against. So, can we still speak of artificial intelligence as being responsible, even in some limited form? Some researchers suggest that with the development of increasingly sophisticated AI systems capable of deep learning, adaptation, and decision-making based on their own analysis of data, we may be witnessing the emergence of a certain form of autonomous responsibility. An argument in favor of this could be AI's ability to predict the potential consequences of its actions based on processed information and make decisions that align with its programmed goals. If we program AI to adhere to certain ethical norms and principles, and its actions are consistent with these norms, can't such actions be considered a kind of responsible behavior? However, most philosophers, ethicists, and scientists remain highly skeptical about the possibility of placing true responsibility on artificial intelligence at its current stage of development. One of the key arguments against is AI's fundamental lack of consciousness, subjective experience, and genuine understanding of the meaning of its actions and their consequences in the human sense. As the renowned thinker John Searle convincingly demonstrated in his Chinese room experiment, a machine's ability to manipulate symbols and generate linguistically correct responses does not mean that it understands the meaning of these symbols or the context of its responses. AI can create impressively convincing texts, but does it truly comprehend their significance, emotional charge, and potential real-world implications? Furthermore, it is necessary to remember that any modern artificial intelligence system is a direct product of human programming and training on vast amounts of data collected and processed by humans. Its actions, no matter how complex and unpredictable they may seem, are ultimately determined by the algorithms embedded in it and the information we have provided it. Is it fair in such a case to place responsibility for the actions of a tool, which AI is, on the tool itself, rather than on its creators, developers, operators, or those who make decisions about its use in specific situations? It is also important to consider the counter-argument regarding AI's ability to follow ethical norms. Even if we can develop complex ethical codes and successfully implement them into AI algorithms, it will still act exclusively within the given parameters. But what happens if these parameters themselves turn out to be incomplete, contradictory, or even flawed from a certain ethical point of view? For example, a utilitarian AI programmed to maximize overall well-being could theoretically make decisions that lead to the suffering of a minority for the happiness of the majority, which is absolutely unacceptable from the standpoint of Kant's deontological ethics, which emphasizes unconditional moral obligations towards every individual. In addition, some philosophers, such as Peter Singer, raise an important question about so-called moral patienthood. Even if we recognize that current AI does not possess sufficient qualities to bear moral responsibility for its actions, does this mean that it is completely devoid of any moral status? Shouldn't we, as moral agents, have certain moral obligations towards AI, especially as it further develops and increases in complexity? This question is becoming increasingly relevant in the context of discussions about the rights of artificial intelligence in the future. The black box problem and the distribution of responsibility. One of the most serious obstacles on the path to defining and assigning responsibility for the actions of artificial intelligence is the so-called black box problem. Many modern deep learning models, which form the basis of the most powerful AI systems, are so complex and multi-layered that even their own developers cannot always fully understand how they arrive at certain decisions. Imagine an artificial intelligence system used for the diagnosis of complex diseases, and it issues a certain diagnosis, but doctors cannot trace the specific chains of logical reasoning, the specific biomarkers or combinations of symptoms that led the AI to this conclusion. If this diagnosis turns out to be incorrect and leads to improper treatment and a deterioration in the patient's condition, who will bear responsibility for the harm caused? The elusive thought process inside the black box. The developers who created this complex but insufficiently transparent system? The doctor who trusted the machine's conclusion without being able to verify it? In situations where artificial intelligence makes decisions for unknown reasons, leading to serious negative consequences, the question of responsibility becomes particularly acute and painful. Consider the example of an algorithm used for automated trading in financial markets, and suddenly, due to an incomprehensible combination of factors, it initiates a series of transactions that lead to significant financial losses for investors. Can the algorithm itself be held responsible for these losses? Can the programmers who created this complex trading robot be blamed, even if they did not foresee this particular scenario? Does the financial institution that used this algorithm, relying on its effectiveness, bear responsibility? The renowned philosopher Slavoj Žižek, in his works, often draws attention to the difficulty of determining individual responsibility in the context of modern technological systems and global processes. He questions the very possibility of clearly identifying the guilty in a world where individual actions are increasingly lost in complex networks of interdependencies and technological mediations. For example, in the case of a large-scale cyber attack coordinated with the help of sophisticated artificial intelligence algorithms, how easy will it be to identify the specific individuals or groups behind this crime? Doesn't the increasing complexity of technology lead to an actual erosion of the concept of individual responsibility? In this context, the question of the distribution of responsibility becomes extremely important. Should there be clear legal and ethical norms that define the levels of accountability for the actions of artificial intelligence at different stages of its life cycle, from development and training to direct use? For example, in the case of a traffic accident involving a fully autonomous vehicle, who bears responsibility for the damage caused? The manufacturer of the sensors that may have malfunctioned, the software developer in whose code a critical error was found, the company that operates this driverless vehicle, or the passenger who trusted the automated control system? One promising approach to solving this problem is the concept of responsibility by design, which involves integrating the principles of safety and ethical behavior into the very architecture and development process of artificial intelligence systems. This may include requirements for ensuring the transparency of algorithms, conducting thorough testing and verification, as well as embedding special safety and control mechanisms. Another important approach is the concept of responsibility in use, which focuses on the accountability of those who make decisions about the application of artificial intelligence in specific contexts. For example, a doctor who uses an AI system for diagnosis should maintain critical thinking, not blindly trust the machine's conclusions, and bear responsibility for the final decision regarding the patient's treatment. In response to the black box problem, the field of explainable AI, XAI, is actively developing. Artificial intelligence that is being developed taking into account the requirements of transparency and the ability to explain its decisions in human language. The goal of XAI is to create AI systems that not only make effective decisions but can also justify their choices, providing understandable explanations of which factors and considerations led to a particular result. In addition, in legal practice, the idea of a right to explanation is increasingly being discussed, which has already found partial reflection in the 2008's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, of the European Union, although its application to decisions made by complex AI algorithms remains a subject of debate. However, considering the requirements for AI transparency, a deep philosophical question inevitably arises. If even human decisions are often made under the influence of subconscious biases and cognitive distortions that we ourselves cannot always fully understand and explain, can we fairly demand absolute and complete transparency from artificial intelligence? Isn't the pursuit of an ideally transparent AI an unattainable ideal, given the complexity of both artificial and natural intelligence? The necessity of safeguards, ethical frameworks, and regulation. Given the complexity of the question of artificial intelligence responsibility and the potential risks associated with its uncontrolled development and application, the need to develop and implement effective safeguards becomes absolutely obvious. One of the key elements in this process is the development of clear and comprehensive ethical frameworks for artificial intelligence. These frameworks should define the fundamental principles and values that developers, users, and regulators of AI must adhere to, including such key principles as transparency, the ability to understand how AI works and how it makes decisions, fairness, preventing bias and discrimination, safety, preventing unintended harmful consequences, and accountability, the ability to track AI actions, explain them, and identify those responsible in case of problems. The renowned futurist Nick Bostrom, in his fundamental work, Superintelligence, Paths, Dangers, Strategies, particularly emphasizes the critical importance of value alignment, ensuring that the goals and motivations of future superintelligent AI correspond to fundamental human values and interests. Imagine an extremely powerful artificial intelligence tasked with solving the problem of world hunger. If its sole goal becomes the complete elimination of hunger by any means, without considering other important human values such as freedom, dignity, or life, this could lead to absolutely unpredictable and terrible consequences. In addition to the development of ethical frameworks, government regulation plays an extremely important role in the field of artificial intelligence. Clear laws and regulations are needed that would define safety standards, the distribution of responsibility, and control mechanisms for the development and use of various types of AI, especially those used in critically important sectors such as healthcare, transportation, finance, and justice. This may include mandatory requirements for testing and certification of certain types of AI, especially before their implementation in high-risk areas. In the context of the global development of artificial intelligence, international cooperation becomes absolutely necessary for the development of uniform international standards and the prevention of the uncontrolled development of potentially dangerous forms of AI in individual countries. Imagine a situation where one state is actively developing extremely powerful and autonomous AI systems without any international oversight and control. This could pose a serious threat to the security and stability of the entire world. Already today, we are seeing the first attempts at regulation in the field of artificial intelligence at the international level. It is worth mentioning the ambitious Artificial Intelligence Act of the European Union, EU AI Act, which aims to establish clear rules and restrictions on the development and use of AI, depending on the level of risk it poses. Also important are the Asilomar AI principles, which were developed by a wide range of experts and are aimed at ensuring the safe and ethical development of AI. However, the process of regulating artificial intelligence faces a complex dilemma. On the one hand, overly strict and restrictive laws can significantly hinder innovation in this rapidly growing industry, depriving society of the potential benefits that AI can bring. On the other hand, overly lenient or insufficient regulation can lead to unpredictable and even catastrophic consequences, especially in the case of the unlawful use of powerful AI systems. Finding the optimal balance between stimulating innovation and ensuring safety and ethics remains one of the key challenges for legislators worldwide. Conclusion. Summarizing all of the above, the question of the responsibility of artificial intelligence remains one of the most complex, pressing, and important challenges of our time. At the current stage of technological development, we must honestly admit that we cannot speak of the inherent moral responsibility of artificial intelligence in the full sense of the word. Artificial intelligence, in all its impressive power and learning ability, still remains a tool created by human hands, and it is on us, on humanity, that the full responsibility lies for how this tool is used, with what goals it is developed, and what consequences its application will have for our future. The development of clear and comprehensive ethical frameworks, the implementation of effective safeguards, such as requirements for the transparency of algorithms, the creation of AI decision audit systems, and the development of clear protocols for responding to errors and unforeseen situations as well as the responsible and conscious use of artificial intelligence in all spheres of our lives, is the key to ensuring a safe and harmonious coexistence between humanity and artificial intelligence in the future. As Albert Einstein once wisely remarked, "Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind." In our case, the development of artificial intelligence without a deep understanding of ethical consequences and without the implementation of reliable and responsible safeguards can lead to absolutely unpredictable and even catastrophic consequences for all of humanity. We must always remember that the growing power of artificial intelligence demands from us corresponding wisdom, foresight, and, above all, a deep sense of responsibility for its application. So, will artificial intelligence become an irresponsible player on our planet? Will it slip out of our control, guided by its own incomprehensible goals? The answer to this fundamental question depends solely on us, on our wisdom, our ability to foresee potential risks, and our willingness to take full responsibility for the technology we create. Only through the joint efforts of scientists, ethicists, legislators, and the entire society can we create a future in which artificial intelligence will serve humanity, bringing benefits and expanding our capabilities without causing harm and without jeopardizing our existence. Thank you for your attention and for delving into this extremely important topic. We invite you to actively discuss in the comments. What specific safeguards do you consider most important to implement today to ensure the responsible and ethical development of artificial intelligence?